want to share with you a little secret today. Now, if by chance they ever put me in charge of the world, even for just one day, you know what I would do? I would knock out world hunger with one strategy, and that would be this. I would send everyone in the world one seed for one tree of some sort of fruit variety for their backyard. Now, I would choose probably an apple tree, but if you don't like apples, you could do cherry or pears or whatever it is that suits your fancy. But if each one of us just grew one fruit tree in our backyard, we would never go hungry. Wouldn't that be amazing? Now, you don't need to have a full orchard to be happy and to have everything that you need for food, but I would encourage all of us to plant 2 trees, 2 apple trees, any variety, but 2 separate varieties so that they can pollinate one another throughout the year. In just a couple of years, if you plant some of the varieties that are out there, they are already producing fruit within just a couple of years of being planted. And they're going to give you food all through the year for dehydrating, for canning, for apple pies to make at Thanksgiving. So many different ways you can use this wonderful, wonderful fruit that God made for us. Today I'm going to show you just one simple recipe, and I think it's important for us to know how to use this because you could use this with almost any variety of apple, even crab apples or wild apples that you find on some old abandoned apple tree as you're going through the forest. One ingredient, my grandmother's most wonderful applesauce, and I'm wearing her apron today. I want to make her applesauce so that you can see how easy it is, but also I want you to be encouraged because we're not going to let any part of this apple go to waste. Not the core or the stems or any part of it. All of it's going to be used after we make the applesauce in another recipe later, which will be our apple core jelly. And it is absolutely wonderful and doesn't even have more than 2 ingredients to it. So let's go inside and see what we can come up with to make some of the most scrumptious and delicious grandma's applesauce. All right, I'm in the kitchen and I've already got a couple of these cut up, but let me tell you the secret to having perfectly cut apples. And I say that tongue-in-cheek. But first you want to get your grandmother's, if you've got it, best paring knife, and you're going to want to sharpen it. And I sharpened this a little while ago, so it's a nice sharp edge, and it can cut me, so I have to be careful. Nextly, you're going to want to take off the little stem on the apples, but if you remember, if you want to know the first letter of the man that you're going to marry, you always want to twist these off and say A, B, and you go through. Okay, so either his first or last name is going to start with B. I've just figured that out because it came off on B. So you always want to do that with every apple. The only problem comes in when you have a couple of ones that don't jive with each other, because sometimes they have different letters, and that's you just get a guess at that point. All right, then you're going to take whichever is the easiest for you. Some people like to just do it all in one long curl, and when I get to be old, I hope to be good at that. For right now, the easiest way I have found is to just cut the apple right in half, and once I've got it in half, I'm going to core it out, just like this, if I can keep from cutting myself while I'm on video. I'm going to take out that core, and then do a little V to cut out the top and bottom of it. Whoops. And I'm putting all of the extra stuff down there in its own little spot because we're going to use that all for apple core jelly here after we've finished this recipe. I'm going to just take off all that outside green edge on it. And the neat thing about this kind of apple is these green Granny Smiths are so sweet and so tart, just kind of the perfect apple for applesauce with no additional ingredients. You don't need to add sugar, you don't need to add honey or anything else, and you can just cut them up. They cut super easy, and you don't have to be scientific about it, just as long as they're not super thick slices, because as this cooks, it needs to be able to break down those slices. So I just kind of do it at random, pretty thin. And there are lots of ways to do this, but this is the way I saw my grandma do it, so that's the way I like to do it because it makes me think of her and it makes my mouth water. All right, I think I've got about 8 apples in here. It looks wonderful. I've filled it all the way to the top, and I'm just going to make sure the lid will fit on that. Literally, we are ready to put it over heat. And now it's time for the easiest part of the whole recipe. I put it on the burner and set it to medium heat. That's pretty easy. About the 6 o'clock position. I'm going to pour enough water from my teapot here into it just to give it a little bit of steam in the bottom, maybe half a cup to 2/3 of a cup, and just enough so that it doesn't burn on the bottom. Mostly the moisture is coming from the apples though, so they're just going to cook down and down and down slowly over the next 30 minutes. I put the lid on tightly, but it doesn't take any other ingredients to make the most perfect applesauce. So meet me back here in about 30 minutes. It has been about 20 minutes and literally I have the most delicious looking treat ready for us. Look at that. That's without doing anything to it. That's without adding any sugar, any lemon juice to keep it pretty, any extra water. The moisture in there is mostly all from just the apples. So I'm going to turn the heat off and remove it from heat. And I'm going to put some in a little bowl for myself. I actually love this while it's hot, but it's too hot for me to eat right now. I'll just put it in a little bowl though for my first taste test, but it won't be my last. And I'm going to put a little cinnamon on here. Let me just recommend only Saigon cinnamon. To me, that's the only kind that's real. It tastes so much better than regular. But I'm going to put a little cinnamon on top and my grandma's silver spoon so it tastes extra special. I'm going to go sit down and enjoy this delicious treat that hardly took any time at all and very little effort on my part except for just cutting up some apples and putting them in a pan. I know you can do this too. I hope you'll enjoy it. You can even can this for those of you who are into canning. What a wonderful treat, and your family is going to love you for it. Now, will you take a moment and share this video with someone else who would enjoy it? Also, stay tuned for just the very last part because it's the most important of the whole video. Until I see you again, God bless you, and I hope you'll take time today to go out and be a blessing to someone else.
This is 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God. Now go spread the word.